everyone, my name is India Carney and thank you so much for joining me today. I am so excited to be here as part of Eric Whitacre's virtual choir workshop series. Eric Whitacre is someone whose music I've been singing since a very young age, so this is a very full circle moment for me, so thank you so much for having me. Just a little bit about myself. I'm a professional singer, songwriter, vocal arranger. I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York, and I currently live in Los Angeles now. I went to music schools for pretty much my whole life. Have been studying music since technically I was 2 years old. I studied at LaGuardia Arts High School in New York City, Manhattan School of Music's pre-college division, and graduated with my degree in music performance, voice performance, pretty much operatic studies from UCLA in 2015. I'm a voice teacher as well as a professional singer, yada yada. I've been very fortunate to have a career in the arts, and I do a lot of studio sessions, background singing, kind of everything in between. I mainly sing for Katy Perry now. I've also sung for Rita Ora, Meghan Trainor, Kit Moore, the artist H.E.R, and various other people too. So very excited to get to your questions. Thank you so much for submitting them. Hopefully I can be some help for you right now, and try and encourage you to, well, I would like to take this time to encourage you while we're stuck at home during this pandemic, to really still look out and find what inspires you to be creative and as productive as you can be during this time. And with that, let's get to our first question. What's the most important thing an educator has ever taught you? And for me, that definitely was in high school when my teacher told me to remember the feeling, something I've kept with me to this day. But I didn't really understand it until later. And essentially, as a singer, you are your own instrument. You're the only one who knows how it feels inside. So that's important for many reasons. You know, if you feel tension, something's not placed correctly, or in general, something's wrong, and you know you need to fix it, it's important to understand what that feels like so that you don't go back to that. And even if you do, you know how to get around it. For example, you know, we don't want to sing in our throat too much because that really adds tension to your singing. But I think, depends on whoever you ask, but in my opinion, I think it's a little bit inevitable given the genre of music that you're singing. If you're singing pop music or like rock or something with like that carries heavy emotion, I generally find myself sometimes dipping into my throat here and there, try and stay out of it. But because of the adrenaline and sometimes even the texture, it's easy to fall into that. But because I've practiced so much the other way and practiced singing, you know, with better technique, it's easy for me to recover. But it's also important for me to feel and to be able to know when I'm singing in my throat, so that I can get out of that as soon as possible and as healthily as possible. Another reason that's really important is for the good times, when things actually finally click, when you understand how to sing in your head voice, or even more difficult, how to sing in your mix, even more difficult, how to sing in your belt. It's very important to understand how that feels for yourself. You know, that's such a huge achievement. But also it's important to know how to go back to that feeling when you need it again. You know, when I remember I had a moment when my belt just like came through during singing one day, and I forgot how it felt, and I was like, well, it felt great. I just hope I can feel it again. And sometimes that's not enough. Singing's such a technical thing. You want to at least be able to understand how you got to that point so that you can try and emulate that time and time again. So I would love to pass that idea off to you, to remember the feeling, because you are the only one who knows how it feels like for you to sing. Oh, also, It's really important for you to feel how things feel inside, wherever it is, so that you can also communicate that to your voice teacher so that they can use that to help instruct you better on what you need in that moment. Okay, so we've got, I'm an aspiring professional singer. If you could give me your 3 top tips to getting a career as a vocalist, what would they be? 3 top tips. All right, well, keyword is career. When you take on a career, it's safe to assume that you have a great understanding of what that subject is. So if you want to call yourself a singer, I would expect you to know how to sing and all the ins and outs of what singing entails. So that is my first tip, I guess, is to study and be prepared. Warm up, condition your voice, do the research that you need to do on technique, or just study with a teacher. Everybody needs a teacher. I need a teacher. And it's so crazy. I used to hate warming up, for example. Warming up really did make me a better singer for so many reasons. I learned how to condition the muscles so that I would be able to properly sing and use them, but also it taught me the technique that I needed. So my first tip is to really do your part as a singer. You know, don't just wing it just because you think you can. I was just doing hours of research the other day. I think it's very important to really be on top of your stuff. My second point, especially a career as a vocalist, you know, a lot of people in the industry, I hope it changes. I'm sure it is, slowly but surely. But a lot of people in the industry tend to have an opinion about vocalists. I think stereotypically, maybe we're not the brightest in terms of vocabulary, theory knowledge, and all that kind of stuff. So I would encourage you to find something that's slightly out of your focus to try and understand and master. For example, like I said, music theory. I think it's incredibly important to have knowledge of music. I mean, even on that note, pick up an instrument. I play piano. I actually started playing flute when I was 4. So I actually had both of those instruments from a really young age. I don't play flute anymore, but piano is awesome, especially because it's so much easier to understand theory and just to understand how music works because you can see it on an instrument. So basically my point is find something that will allow you to become more well-rounded and call yourself a musician as opposed to just a vocalist. Listen, I know better than anybody that vocalists are amazing in every way. But I think just like anyone else in the industry, you always have to be proving yourself to an extent. And so as much as you can get in your toolbox, the better, because it'll really, really set you apart. So find something that will make you more well-rounded and as a musician and not just as a vocalist. Whether that be learning music theory, learning Logic or Pro Tools, or just general engineering recording, picking up an instrument, whatever it is. And I guess my third tool would definitely be networking, but unfortunately we're at home. So either we figure out a really, really effective way to network through social media, which pretty much is social media, I guess. Hashtags and posting videos and sharing a bunch of things, that is all networking. You know, until we can go back out to the bars and everything, I think that's our best bet for right now, but I don't think it's impossible. I think it will take a crazy amount of creativity to be able to figure out how to make social media work for you right now. But networking is really where it's at. That's what got me everything that I've ever gotten in Los Angeles. And what I did was, once I turned 21 and I was able to go out to bars, you know, I'm a huge homebody. I would rather be in bed or just whatever it is, somewhere inside in the comfort of my own home. But I said, okay, India, you really need to get out of your comfort zone if you want to meet new people, if you want to be successful. This is going to be really important. So I found this late night jam in the center of Hollywood, and actually West Hollywood, but whatever. Anyway, I would sing there every Tuesday night, and literally every night I met somebody new, whether it was a producer or songwriter that I ended up meeting up with later. It's incredibly important just to be visible, to be there. Even if you go to the party and you just stand there and like smile at one person, you still really did a good thing. Even better to go find one or two people to have a conversation with, because you never know who people are, and somebody's always looking for somebody like you. So that is my third tip, is to network, especially when states open up again, or even countries open up again. Get out, like perform, be visible, do whatever you have to do for people to see you. Right now, I would say content is everything, and finding a good way to share that with people is also another form of networking. So however that works best for you. Hope that helps. So, do I prefer touring or recording? Unfortunately, I don't really have a good answer for that, because I do love both, but that has evolved over the past few years. I think like most of us, we start out singing live in musicals, on stages, wherever. It's live. It's always been live. I think it didn't turn into recording for me until like halfway through college, and I hated it because I didn't sound the same. It didn't seem to capture the live element of the performances that I thought I did so well at the time. And it took me a few years, but I finally learned that recording is really its own art form, and because of that, that's why it's so beautiful in its own way. It's not meant to be live. It's not even really meant to repeat or relive, whatever the word I'm looking for is, the live performance. Is meant to be its own. So I need to actually learn how to adapt to a recording booth and how to sing for that. They're two totally different art forms. Okay, so now I have graduated from only being able to do live performances to really understanding and respecting the art of recording as a totally different thing. Touring, I finally had my first experience touring 2 years ago with Katy Perry as a background singer. This was her Witness tour, and it was international. My first tour was international, and I also have never really been out of the country anyway. So that was really new for me on, so many levels you can imagine. There are a lot of things that I didn't like about touring, like the obvious, not being home. Family and friends are very important to me, personal connections, and although we have a family on tour, nothing beats the people that you grew up with, that you know. And so, that was really hard for me sometimes, especially towards the end. I joined halfway through the tour, so I was out for like a good 6 months, and it was new for me. But at the same time, I got to travel the world doing what I love to do. I got to get paid for it. I also, I was backstage singing behind one of like the biggest artists ever, so I really got a glimpse into what her life looks like, what the demands are of a pop star like Katy Perry. And as somebody who would like to continue a career as a solo artist, I feel like I was able to learn a lot about what might be expected of me, what I should expect in the industry. So I guess there's always going to be like a yes and no to anything. There are days when I really don't want to record. There are a lot of recordings that I don't like, but I've respected it. I've understood what it is as its own art form. And there are so many things that I love about it because I'm not trying to turn it into something that it's not. And then the same with touring. There are things that I didn't like, and there were a lot of things that I did though. And I would do it again, and every time I do it, I would change something about it to really make it work more for me. Like perhaps bringing my family on tour a little bit more often so I could see people more, because that's definitely possible. Anyway, I can't say if I like one or the other, but hopefully that gave you a good idea of why they're both so great. Right, so we've got, oh, this is good. Do you ever suffer from performance anxiety, and do you have any tips for managing it? Yeah, I do. I think everybody does. And this makes me think of something that I thought was a really sweet sentiment. Something along the lines of like, if you didn't have nerves, it wouldn't be important to you. Nerves are a sign of something being important to you. And so hopefully, well, I mean, when I took that, I was like, okay, well, yeah, performance anxiety doesn't mean that I can't do it. Performance anxiety just means that this is really important to me and I don't want to mess it up. So how can I just get past it? Because I definitely can. I'm backstage because I'm supposed to be on stage. I'm on stage because the audience members paid for tickets to see me. So I have a duty to myself and to the audience to overcome this performance anxiety, which is something that we all, I think, experience from time to time. For me, it just creeps up on me randomly too. I thought I fixed it, and then I went on stage once and I was like, I'm gonna need a second. But basically, I just do the easy trick, like look ahead at the exit sign. The exit sign's great because it is more or less at eye level. When you look at the exit sign, the people in the audience do still feel seen, and you know, that's really important because they're there to see you. But as a performer, I can understand that it's a little nerve-wracking to make eye contact with people who you don't know. Even worse, people who you do know, who you can see in the audience. So I look at the exit sign straight ahead, anything that's eye level straight ahead, and stare until the rest of the room just becomes black and I don't see anybody. And once I've found my cool, I slowly will let the audience back in. Maybe even lower my eye line just a little bit to actually start looking at people towards the back, and then the middle, and then the front. But yeah, my trick is something that I'm sure you've heard before, but for me it really, really works. I don't really picture people naked because then I'm picturing them naked. I don't want to do that. But the exit sign works for me. But I guess the most important takeaway is that you find whatever centers you, find whatever you need to think about. Maybe it's some mantra that you have, some memory that you have, or maybe it's just a deep breath in, and on the exhale you tell yourself, I'm meant to be here, or the audience is here to see me. Whatever it is, it's just something that can center you, allow you to block out the audience, and give a relaxed performance. It does take time. Oh, you know what else helped me overcome my performance anxiety was gaining confidence in myself. I think there's a huge difference between being pretentious and being confident in what you have. I think the whole purpose of being a musician is that you are unique and that you have something new and different to bring to the table. And as a singer, I mean, just from the get-go, you are the only person who sings like you, the only person. So allowing yourself to pinpoint the gifts that you have, what validates you and what justifies you being on that stage. And I'm talking about like specific things, like I love how airy my tone is. I'm not talking about me right now, but just in in general, I love how airy my tone is. You know, this like pentatonic rundown is really like in my wheelhouse. I really feel like I do a really good job at it. Or like, man, I can really hold a note out really long. Like, that takes an incredible amount of skill. But go home, and if that's something that you need to improve upon, I think we all do, allowing ourselves to just be confident in what we have, I think that'll help your performance and your performance anxiety in the future. But literally, just go down the list about what it is that makes you you, what you're good at. Find songs that highlight that, and keep the list going. All right, so what has been, that's nice. That's nice. What has been the highlight of my career so far? You know, I'm really very lucky and very grateful to have a career in the arts. As we all know, it's not the easiest thing to do. You know, it's people can easily take advantage of you, but at the same time they need you, because who doesn't need music? But it's a constant struggle to get people to really value you as a musician, and not look at you as somebody who is disposable. Anyway, that's it with the sob story. Very happy to have this career. One of the highlights was definitely the Katy Perry tour though, because touring is it's really such a different experience. It's something that you will experience as you continue in your career. And I'm really grateful to have been on that tour. I just learned so much. You know, I'm working towards being my own artist, and I just took away so much material. You know, just looking at, you know, how the crew guys have to load in. Actually, they load out right after the show, and then they drive to the next city, and then immediately go loading in. You know, assuming the show is over at like 11 or sometimes even midnight, they'll drive and then set up the next day at like 3:30, and then until like 10 a.m. and have no time really to sleep in between, and then go ahead and do it all over again the next day, and yada yada yada. That's roughly, I don't know for sure, but that is a piece of what I experienced. You know, just the singers having the demand of flying, and just other factors that will have an effect on your voice. I just left that experience feeling so much smarter, feeling so much more confident in myself, because I had the opportunity to sing for someone who's so respected. But I also, yeah, I just learned so much. So that was, I mean, obviously that was a huge highlight. What impact has COVID-19 had on you personally and professionally? I think it's had the same impact personally and professionally, and that is in the idea that I have to be productive right now and creative, and just coming up with new things to do to stay busy. I think that takes a personal toll on you, because, you know, I can technically sit in bed all day, I can technically like nap all day, but at the end of the day, am I gonna feel like I did something? Am I gonna feel, I mean, I didn't do anything. And how am I gonna feel about that? When the pandemic hit, a lot of my gig opportunities were definitely canceled. I think most every musician would identify with that. And obviously, you know, that's a huge financial loss, but it's what keeps us busy. But even if I have a piano here in my room, which I do, that doesn't mean I'm gonna play it. And that can take a very personal toll on you when you have to come up with all of the ideas. So that definitely hit me the first month or so, but I finally found my ground. I think it's just, I love doing things, so I'm gonna find something to do. And luckily every now and then, gigs do come in right now, but not as much as we're supposed to. I'm choosing to believe that when things open up, things will slowly turn back to what they used to be, and I'll be able to, and my musician friends will be able to continue and resume their careers fairly easily. So fingers crossed for that. But right now I'm trying to learn how to keep myself motivated so that I can really be ready for when this pandemic ends and I need to have content to show for it, or I just need to be ready to go back into the world. But just feel like there's purpose to what you're doing. Whatever it is, find something that makes you feel like you did something. Take rest when you need it, but also be able to pull yourself out of it if you need to. Good luck. And our last question is, what's your favorite genre to sing? Do you sing in choir? My favorite genre is by far pop. I just love pop music. I think it's just the fact that you can, and this is a generalization, but the fact that you can have 4 chords and the possibilities are just endless with what you do. Basically, I got my degree in essentially opera. I sang musical theater for a very long time. It was probably the most formative years of my life. I was doing musical theater, I was doing choir / classical, jazz along the way, R&B, country sometimes. So I've got all of these musical influences kind of going at the same time, and for a long time that became something that confused me a little bit. I was kind of like, okay, well, if I can do all these things, assuming I can do all these things at the same level, which I couldn't, assuming I can do all these things, how do I turn that into whatever my sound is? And it took a long time for me to understand that. I don't think I really found my sound until maybe like 2-3 years ago. And even then, I'm still learning. I'm still adjusting and fixing things. But basically, I've found that pop music allows you to put your spin on whatever it is. I think pop music obviously has stylistic things that define it. But I just find that there's a lot of freedom in pop music, and that's what makes it so beautiful to me. With that said, I love opera. I think it's beautiful. I think opera singers are some of the strongest singers there are. They really understand the idea of voice technique and what it means to have vocal folds. It's so, so cool. I really respect every genre of music, but I love pop the most. I don't sing in choir anymore. I used to, but not so much anymore. I do music direct a cappella groups and arrange for them from time to time. I did a cappella for my entire 4 years of college, and I loved that. Yeah, so that seems to wrap up this session. Thank you so much again for tuning in. For those of you who are still here, I wish you the best of luck in your careers. I wish you the best of luck finding things that keep you sane and healthy and productive, that paint your vision of what you want to see during this time when we're stuck here at home. But I hope that this gave you a little bit of insight on some things, answered some questions. Feel free to reach out with any additional questions you have. But for now, wishing you all the best in all that you do. Keep your head up. I'm trying to list a bunch of cliches that you do definitely need to hear. Keep your head up, do your thing, be you, be good. And yeah, thank you again for the team at Whitacre for having me, and thank you so much for tuning in. Take care.